Hey everyone, it's Friday, March 14th. You're watching CBC News BC. I'm Benit Brage. We're here in the Vancouver newsroom, and let's get to your top stories this afternoon. Well, Mark Carney has officially been sworn in as Canada's Prime Minister. He takes the reins with a trade war in the background and tough tensions with the United States. And here's a little bit from the ceremony earlier at Rideau Hall in Ottawa.
I, Mark Carney, do solemnly and sincerely promise and swear that I will truly and faithfully, and to the best of my skill and knowledge, execute the powers and trust reposed in me as Prime Minister.
Carney is Canada's only Prime Minister who has never held elected office. He has also selected a much leaner cabinet, which includes Dominic LeBlanc as the International Trade and Intergovernmental Affairs Minister. Melanie Joly will continue as Minister of Foreign Affairs. Chrystia Freeland comes back, and this time she's the Minister of Transport and Internal Trade. There's also 3 new faces in his cabinet, and you can see the full list on the CBC News website. And the BC Coroner Service has new preliminary data from 2025 this January. It says the deaths of 152 people happened due to unregulated toxic drugs and that they were reported to the coroner. It says while these number of deaths have been below 160, certain areas and communities like the Fraser Health area and Interior Health saw an increase. Now, those between the ages of 40 and 59 accounted for half of those deaths, while 3 deaths were reported among children and those under 18. Also in Vancouver, police say they are investigating a collision in Stanley Park this morning, which killed 1 man and sent another to the hospital. Police say this happened just after 3 a.m. The driver of a white BMW was traveling along Stanley Park Drive between 2nd and 3rd Beach, and police say the driver lost control, crashed into a tree, and an 18-year-old passenger died at the scene. The driver was also taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Investigators say they don't believe drugs or alcohol were a factor, but they are asking for witnesses to reach out to them. Today's also the first Friday of spring break, so that means a busy travel day at Vancouver International Airport. The airport says it's expecting more than 77,000 people to come through there today, and over the next 2 weeks, it expects around 1.3 million travelers to pass through. And this is all happening among an ongoing trade war between Canada and the U.S., and we asked Canadians and Americans at YVR how they're feeling about traveling between the countries. Take a listen.
A little anxious, but hopefully it's kind of out of sight, out of mind for now, and yeah, hopefully it'll be okay.
I probably wouldn't go to the U.S. for a while just because things will get expensive.
I feel deeply uncomfortable at times, but personally I think that we behave what we think Americans should behave like and don't feel responsible for what anyone else does.
YVR says they're increasing staff in the terminal and along the curbs to help travelers, but they're still asking people to come to the airport, be prepared, and arrive early for their flights. Now, for this spring break, YVR says the top 3 international travel destinations are LA, Hong Kong, and San Francisco. So there you go, some travel options. And that's it for now. You're watching CBC News BC. I'm Benit Brage. BC Today is up next.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Liberal leader Mark Carney was sworn in this morning as Prime Minister, along with his new cabinet. We'll bring you some of the details and the reaction. And spring break is getting underway, which means busy times over at Vancouver International Airport. We are asking you, what are your travel plans and what are your hacks for a stress-free trip? YVR will join us to take your calls. Plus, Brian Minter will be here to talk gardening and take your questions. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. New Liberal leader Mark Carney has been sworn in as Canada's 24th Prime Minister.
I, Mark Carney, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty, King Charles III, King of Canada, his heirs and successors. I, Mark Carney, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I shall be a true and faithful servant to His Majesty, King Charles III, as a member of His Majesty's Privy Council for Canada. I will, in all things, to be treated, debated, and resolved in Privy Council, faithfully, honestly, and truly declare my mind and my opinion. I shall keep secret all matters committed and revealed to me in this capacity, or that shall be secretly treated of in council. Generally, in all things I shall do as a faithful and true servant ought to do for His Majesty. I, Mark Carney, do solemnly and sincerely promise and swear that I will truly and faithfully, and to the best of my skill and knowledge, execute the powers and trust reposed in me as Prime Minister.
That's Canada's newest Prime Minister, Mark Carney, being sworn in at Rideau Hall this morning. Along with Carney, his new cabinet was also sworn in during the ceremony. And this new cabinet is smaller than Justin Trudeau's cabinet, with 24 ministers. François-Philippe Champagne takes over as the new finance minister. Chrystia Freeland is Minister of Transport and Internal Trade, and BC's only cabinet representative is Jonathan Wilkinson, who remains Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. Some high-profile names without cabinet postings: Karina Gold, Frank Baylis, and Mark Holland. Holland announced yesterday that he would not run in the upcoming election. Now, Melanie Joly was not sworn in this morning. She was at the G7 meetings, but she will remain in her post at Foreign Affairs. Now, following the swearing-in ceremony, Carney addressed the nation outside Rideau Hall, surrounded by his cabinet ministers. He pledged to strengthen the economy with a, quote, action-oriented government set to weather the tariff war coming from south of the border.
Growing more higher-paying jobs, improving affordability, and making Canada more secure. Canada's new government will be action-oriented, driven by a smaller but highly experienced team made to meet the moment we are in. Our leaner cabinet will focus on two priorities in particular. First, protecting Canadian workers and their families in the face of unjustified foreign trade actions. And second, growing this great country by putting more money in Canadians' pockets, by ensuring that government spends less so Canada can invest more, by building millions of homes, by making Canada a superpower in both conventional and clean energies, by creating new trade corridors with reliable partners, and by forging one Canadian economy out of 13. We will relentlessly pursue this positive agenda because Canadians know that negativity isn't strength. They know that negativity won't pay the rent or the mortgage. The negativity won't bring down the price of groceries. Negativity won't win a trade war.
Carney did not specify when he would bring back the House and call an election. Canada is due to head to the polls this fall, but many are expecting one to be called as early as next week. Awaiting that election call is the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre. And he spoke following the ceremony this morning, arguing the Carney-led government is the same as Justin Trudeau's.
Today, Liberals are trying to trick Canadians into electing them for a fourth term in power with a cabinet that is 87% the same as Trudeau's cabinet. You see, Mark Carney thinks Canadians are stupid. He thinks that a little bit of cosmetic surgery will allow the Liberals to disguise who they are and make people forget what they did for 10 years in order to elect them to a fourth Liberal term. But it's the same Liberal gang with the same Liberal agenda, the same Liberal results, and the same Liberal promises of the last 10 years. Only they want you to be fooled, and they want to take 4 terms.
Now, Mark Carney has a narrow window before an expected federal election. And he's trying to present himself as the person to face threats from south of the border. He and his cabinet ministers are having a meeting today before he makes the trip to Europe to meet with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Much more, of course, on the swearing-in ceremony, reaction as well from the opposition parties throughout the day here on CBC. This is BC Today. It's now 12:12. Now, former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau submitted his resignation to the Governor-General this morning before the Carney government was sworn in. Trudeau will not run for re-election, but will remain an MP until an election is called. And as the Liberal government turns a new leaf, many are reflecting on Trudeau's 9 years in power. On his last day in office, he had this to say to Canadians.
I am so proud of Canadians. I'm proud to have served a country full of people who stand up for what's right, rise to every occasion, and always have each other's backs when it matters most. This may be my last day here in this office, but I will always be boldly and unapologetically Canadian. My only ask is that no matter what the world throws at us, you always be the same.
That is Justin Trudeau making a last statement to Canadians as he leaves the Prime Minister's office. And part of the news today has to do with the carbon tax. Mark Carney has hinted at removing the carbon tax by the end of the day and asked how he plans to get rid of that consumer carbon tax ahead of its scheduled increase. Carney said, quote, "How are we going to do it by the end of the day?" Carney added he would have more details following a Friday afternoon cabinet meeting. So that's this afternoon. .14 now. This is BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks for being with us. And we are heading into spring break, and Vancouver International Airport is expecting more than 1 million travelers throughout the 2 weeks. So from checking in to security lineups to boarding, the airport process can be a journey unto itself. We want to hear your travel plans this spring break. And what are your hacks for keeping travel stress-free? You can call us now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or hit pound 690 on your phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca. Here are some people who are getting ready to board at the airport this morning, speaking to CBC's Jessica Chung.
Well, it was busy on the ferry. We took the ferry over from Victoria last night. It was quite busy, and the hotel was really busy. We spent the night at the hotel here.
Okay, so then now that you've gone to the airport, how have all the processes been?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
So far, so good.
That's awesome. So Korea,
Yeah.
what are we excited for?
The food.
Where were you and how was it?
We stayed at Whistler Creekside for 7 days, and it snowed 61 inches in 7 days, and the skiing was unbelievable.
Absolutely.
World class.
For sure. Yeah. And what about you? How was Whistler?
good. We went tubing and there was like there's like so much snow.
That's awesome. And so what was it like actually with everything that's going on being Americans coming to Canada?
Yeah, we were very welcomed. It was nice. People definitely tossed some jokes our way at our expense sometimes, but it was very welcoming.
We're heading down to Las Vegas for a bachelor party.
Okay, and where's home for you?
Coquitlam.
Okay, cool. So you guys are from here. Okay.
Yes.
So then, what are you most looking forward to for your spring break?
I mean, just relaxing, having a couple drinks, and hopefully win some money.
Amazing. Yeah. So then it's starting to get busy now because obviously spring break starting today. Have you found any delays? How has your kind of traveling process been?
So far, super smooth, but yeah, knock on wood for now.
No.
She overslept.
Okay.
I had to wake her up.
I was packing last night.
Where are you guys headed?
We're going to Mexico.
Sayulita.
Sayulita, surfing.
Yeah.
Someone's very excited to go to Mexico there. You can let us know your own travel plans for spring break as well. Where are you going? Whether it's around BC, around Canada, or you're flying out, give us a call. Let us know. And tell us as well if you have any hacks for a stress-free trip. We'd love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or just hit pound 690 on your phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca. I'm watching your emails to our inbox. Alyssa Smith is YVR's communications manager and joins me now. Hello there, Alyssa.
Hi, Michelle.
Good lesson there. Don't sleep in, or your daughter will make fun of you.
Yes. Yeah.
How busy do you expect it to get?
Over the spring break period, which we're sort of clocking as starting today, March 14th, through the end of the month being March 30th, we're expecting more than 1.2 million travelers to come through YVR for the spring break period. So that sort of breaks down to about 70,000 travelers per day. And our busiest day being Friday the 28th, I suppose, as folks are either making their way back home or arriving back in Vancouver before they head back to school.
I see. So about 700,000 a day. How does that compare to a regular day at YVR?
We're a little busier than we typically are during the week. So we typically see, 65, 67,000 travelers. So at 70 and then upwards of 70 with our busiest day, I think we're clocking, approximately 78,000 travelers. We're just, that much more busy than we typically are during the regular week.
And how do the domestic terminals compare with international or US?
Sure. So depending on where you're traveling, the key thing really is to be prepared. We work tirelessly, every day to make sure that we're making sure our operations and the systems that support it are fine-tuned to support the traveler journey. So domestically, what travelers can look forward to is a new security screening experience. So if you're traveling across Canada, our new ABC checkpoint is completely outfitted with the new CATSA Plus technology. And so when you're traveling through that checkpoint, no need to take out your liquids or gels, no need to remove your electronics. You can just pass right through that new security screening equipment and just making that experience that much more efficient. So we're really proud that we're the first airport in Canada to have that equipment at our domestic checkpoint. And that opened late in 2024. So if you're traveling across Canada, you can look forward to that new checkpoint.
So it's this new technology. What difference has it made in terms of the lineups?
It's a faster experience. So lineups tend to move more quickly as CATSA is moving through its processes to screen travelers ahead of their flight. So as you can imagine, without the need to, remove that bag of liquids or remove your electronics and sort of sort your things as you're heading through, you're just moving through the line that much more quickly.
Sure.
So that's a much easier experience.
And do you see that being expanded to the other terminals?
Working to take that technology across the other checkpoints, absolutely. And it's a matter of working with CATSA and making sure our infrastructure is ready for it. But then for folks who are traveling internationally, we have a new Plaza Premium First lounge. So it is a pay-per-use lounge with Plaza Premium, but the Plaza Premium First is their, higher end version of their lounge. And we're actually one of the only airports in North America to have that lounge. So it's a more luxurious experience when you're visiting that lounge, and it's got some locally curated menus as well. So a really nice experience if you are traveling internationally and have a bit more time before your flight and you'd like to check into that lounge.
Okay, what are the costs for that?
So that it is a pay-per-use lounge, and it's looking at about $50 for entry there. But with that, you've got a bar, you've got access to all the food and all the amenities. So depending on how long you have before your flight and how you like to enjoy your time before the flight, it can actually work out to quite a good deal.
Okay. And I think you also had a security screening booking program for a couple of years, but that was canceled late last year. Can you tell us about it and why it was canceled?
Sure. So I think you're referring to the YVR Express program, which was one where, depending on where you're traveling and time of day, you could reserve your spot in the security screening line in advance. And so we did have that program in collaboration with CATSA into last year and for a few years post-pandemic. And that's just part of the ways that we're always trying to look at different options to improve the traveler experience or provide more certainty or control for travelers over their travel experience. So it was a pilot program. We did run that for just over a year, and we had some uptake and success with it, but it wasn't one where we felt we needed to continue on with it based on the number of bookings, as well as how the security screening lines at YVR are being operated and how efficient they actually are. So it was one of those programs where we were really excited to try it and see how that would work and see what the reception would be. And then as we look at the new checkpoint that we have online, for example, and some of the other efficiencies that have been brought in, it was one that we felt we no longer needed to offer to travelers.
Okay, let's put out our numbers again. Let us know where you're traveling for spring break, whether it is domestic, whether you're just traveling around BC, going to Victoria, hopping on a ferry, or heading out elsewhere in Canada or to another country. You can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 as well, or email bctoday@cbc.ca. If you have any tips for making things go smoothly and ensuring a stress-free trip, we'd love to hear from you. And if you have any questions for Alyssa from YVR, you can call us too. Again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Okay, so earlier we heard from the folks who were already at the airport saying things were going pretty smoothly so far. Someone slept in, but what is your advice for someone who would be heading out on a flight today or over the next couple of weeks?
Well, it actually really ties into the comment about sleeping in, really, because our top travel trip is really in the preparation, right? So there's so much to do before you get ready for your trip and come to the airport. Everything from, waking up on time to making sure that your travel documents are up to date and in order. So depending on where you're going, do you need a visa? Is your passport about to expire? Things like this that we kind of, take for granted because if we're not traveling that often or whatever that ends up being. So just make sure your travel documentation is valid and everything that you need. And then as you think about your trip and you're making your way to the airport, be sure to check in with your airline in advance, either through the app or online, just to check latest flight schedules or any changes or things that you need to be aware of with your actual flight. And then as you're making your way to the airport, if you are driving, book your parking in advance. If you hit our website, yvr.ca/parking, and you reserve either in our Jet Set lot or the long-term value, there are some cost savings there if you're reserving online in advance. Or of course, Canada Line is a great option as well, but just sort of know how you're going to get here. And then once you're here, we are still recommending that folks arrive 2 hours ahead of their domestic flight or 3 hours ahead of their flight to the US or internationally. And that just gives you enough time to get here, to park, to make your way to the terminal, check in, drop your bags if you're checking your baggage, and then get through security screening, where you can then, take that breath as you come through the screening process and do some shopping, grab a bite to eat, maybe enjoy that Plaza Premium First Lounge if you're heading internationally, and then make your way to the boarding gates when called. And that just makes for, you talk about that sort of seamless and stress-free process. If you're prepared and you're giving yourself that time, hopefully that adds up to an enjoyable experience as you come through YVR.
Okay. Is staffing being increased throughout spring break?
Absolutely. So always during our peak periods, spring break heading into summer, of course, we do work with our guest experience team who are wearing the blue coats all across our terminal and at the information counters. We've got additional staffing to support travelers as they make their way through. And we've even extended that customer experience team right out onto our curb. So even if you're being dropped off or you're coming off the Canada Line platform, even before you get into the terminal, you'll see our colleagues wearing those blue coats who can answer any questions around, where do I need to go to check in for my flight? Where can I drop my bags? And they're happy to provide that direction to travelers.
What do you know about where people are going for spring break?
Top destinations for us this year, we've got a couple across Canada. Toronto is the preeminent popular destination across Canada, as well as Calgary. When we're looking internationally, Hong Kong is our top destination for this period of time. And then when we look into the US, it's actually LA and San Fran. So our two West Coast neighbors down in California that are the top destinations out of YVR for that period.
Have you found any decline at all in trips to the United States or bookings to the United States as a result, or just amid what's happening with the tariff wars?
It's certainly one that we're aware of, and we can appreciate sort of the uncertainty that comes with it. Of course, those numbers and the actual data of the traveler sits with the airline, but really, early days to tell if there's any trends that are there. But for us, if folks are rethinking that trip to the US for whatever reason, we do hope that they're selecting another destination that we serve at YVR.
Okay. And what should people think about if they are worried about uncertainty of traveling, getting through security or anything like that if they're traveling to the States? What advice can you give them?
It comes down to preparation again. I mean, if folks are traveling to the US, at YVR, we're a pre-clearance facility. So that means that you're going through the customs process here at YVR. There's a new app that's available. It's called Mobile Passport Control. You can download it onto your smartphone and enter your passport information securely through that app that's delivered by US Customs and Border Protection. And again, it just saves you a little bit of time as you're going through that customs process. And if you're unsure, ask the question, and you should be fine to head through that process.
We have an email here from Paul in Wannock who writes, I'll be traveling to North Carolina in April, rebooked due to the hurricane damage. I'll be attending the John C. Campbell Folk School. Wanted to bring something up, though, that happened just before COVID. I was also attending the folk school then. I have dual citizenship and have been in Canada since 1976. I was using the check-in kiosk. It indicated I also needed a U.S. passport, which I did not own. I was brought into an office which said I couldn't enter just on the Canadian passport. I could cross by car but not fly. I have since acquired a U.S. passport. So perhaps some advice there for dual citizens.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's a really good point, John. I mean, North Carolina, what an exciting destination. And again, really thinking through that preparation and what documentation is needed for your trip. It's really important to understand those access requirements. Even last year, my partner and I were on a trip and we were heading to Europe, and my passport was about to expire in 6 months. And I was like, oh my goodness, because there's that rule of thumb, I think, where it's like within 6 months,
right,
you should be traveling on a passport. And I did my research. I looked into it through the Government of Canada website, as well as that of France, where you're headed. And it turns out I could travel on that 6-month passport. It was 4 months. That's the cutoff for travel to France. So, a little bit of research can go a long way with your travel documentation before you go.
Okay. One quick call from Rita in Langley. Hello there, Rita.
Hi there.
Hi. Where are you going and what's your question?
Okay, we're going to Phoenix, and the question is, friends of ours live down there, and they've just asked us, because she has a prosthetic breast, and it has failed on her, so she asked us to pick up her new one and bring it down to her. Is that going to be a problem, bringing it in through airport security into my in my carry-on?
That kind of item. Okay, Rita, thank you very much. Yeah, is that something that would need to be specially noted?
Quite possibly. That's a really good question, Rita. And I think for you to understand the security requirements around that particular item, I would suggest looking at the CATSA website and understanding their requirements for if you are planning to just take a carry-on, whether that's something that can go through security screening, or if you're better putting that into checked luggage. But CATSA would be the one who would have information on what's permissible through security screening.
Okay, that's the Canadian Air Transport Security Authority.
Yes, yeah, thanks, Michelle. We often speak in acronyms here in at the airport. So yes, yeah.
At YVR, yeah.
Yeah.
Rita, thank you very much. And again, yes, check CATSA. It's the Canadian Air Transport Security Authority. And I hope you find your answer there. Thanks so much for the call and have a good trip. Thank you very much for your time as well, Alyssa. And I'm sure you're heading into busy times. So all the best to you.
Pleasure. Thanks, Michelle.
That is Alyssa Smith, who speaks for YVR, Vancouver International Airport. It's 12:31 now. You're with BC Today. Thanks so much for being with us. I'm Michelle Elliott. Brian Minter is coming right up, so he's going to be ready to take your gardening questions. Right now, we're going to take you to a news update, and here's Amelia John.
Good afternoon. The BC coroner says 152 people died of toxic drug overdoses in January. That number is down more than 30% from the same time last year when there were 219 deaths. The coroner's service says half of those who died in January were between the ages of 40 and 59, while 3 were children or teenagers. Fentanyl and similar opioids were found in 77% of cases. Police in Vancouver say the driver of a BMW that crashed into a tree in Stanley Park this morning was brought to the hospital in critical condition. But they say the car's 18-year-old passenger died at the scene. The crash happened just after 3 a.m. between 2nd and 3rd Beach, where the driver lost control. Investigators say impairment is not believed to have been a factor. And RCMP and Kamloops are investigating an assault that sent a teenager to the hospital last night. Police say the teen was in a gray Volkswagen on Tronquil Road when a fight broke out with a group of people on the street. Police are hoping someone has surveillance video or more information about what happened. And now the BC forecast. On the north coast, a mix of sun and cloud today, high of 7 degrees. In the Peace, chance of light snow, high of -10. In the central interior, mainly cloudy, chance of flurries, high of -2. High of 6, mainly sunny in the West Kootenay, high of 4 with a mix of sun and cloud in the east. In the southern interior, mainly sunny, 6 degrees. And for the south coast, a mix of sun and cloud, highs around 10. And that is your CBC News from Vancouver.
I am heading to Asia, so going to the Philippines, leaving this weekend where I think it's like 33 degrees. Yeah, and then after that, Japan, which I think sits set at about 18 degrees right now. So very different climates.
That's gonna have a lot in your suitcase.
Yeah, exactly. There's like column A and column B. What are you bringing? But I'm very much looking forward to it, of course.
Oh, I hope you have the best time, Michelle. You deserve it.
Gonna get some Australia weather.
Ooh.
I will see you in 2 weeks. Thanks, Amelia.
Don't forget your sunscreen.
No, that's right. Amelia John from the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Well, On the Coast is also getting ready for some fun this weekend, and it has to do with the Junos. Here's Gloria.
Hi there, it's Gloria Makarenko here, and I hope you can join us for On the Coast this afternoon. You know, there's a big concert this weekend in Surrey ahead of the Junos. Dozens of artists are going to be playing across multiple stages all day long. It's a free concert, and our CBC hosts, Stephen Quinn and Benit Brach, they're going to be there introducing many of the bands. So on the show this afternoon, we're going to meet one of the performers. He's Surrey born and bred. He's a country singer. His name is Tyler Joe Miller, and he's going to join us. He's got some new music out too. And since it's Friday, our climate and science guy, Darius Madavi, he's going to be here with his Friday quiz. We've got a pretty good prize to give away this afternoon, so I hope you can join us between 3 and 6 for On the Coast.
Gloria, thank you. We will join you. And that's On the Coast on CBC Radio 1 in Metro Vancouver and on the CBC News app. Well, Brian Minter is here now to talk about small fruits you can put in now and, of course, to take your gardening questions. So you can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or hit pound 690 on your phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca. And Brian joins me now from Country Garden Limited in Chilliwack. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Michelle, love this weather for today.
Yes,
Not great promises
for today.
the weekend, but
yeah.
Anyway, and it is really time for folks just anxious to get in the garden. It has been cold. I mean, this is a typical, back and forth March, but it has been cold. But certain things that are hardy in the garden. How about those fresh-tasting strawberries you go in your own garden and pick? And how about the raspberries you enjoy, either early in the mid-season or late in the year?
Oh.
And how about wonderful going and picking some of those wonderful fresh currants out of your garden? Or how about some figs? All those things are in garden stores right across the province right about now, and really suggesting that now is the time to get them going because they'll take this cool, unsettled March weather and become well established. Now, Michelle, just a couple of things for those who are novices in planting. All of these smaller berries or small fruits do well in containers, so you don't have to have a particular garden to grow them. But the one thing is this: I think most of us would like to plant something and enjoy it this summer. And that's the difference between when you're talking about strawberries or talking about raspberries. The main season varieties, basically on strawberries, will grow and multiply, but you're not going to be able to taste them until next year. It's the everbearing varieties, and oh my gosh, there's some really good ones out there. You plant them now, and probably about the middle of July, you'll enjoy them all the way through the rest of the summer. And the same with the raspberries. If you plant the everbearing varieties now, they'll sit there and look and start to grow and so on. But it'll be late summer before they start producing those wonderful fresh berries to enjoy, not only now, but for many years to come. And then just to broaden it a wee bit, Michelle, we all have special tastes. I mean, blueberries really seem to be the most popular small fruit. And just a reminder for folks that when you have two different varieties, you get far better cross-pollination and more production as well, which is always important. And they like a very well-drained soil, lots of acidity. I love using bark mulch in around the roots to get them going. But some of the bigger plants, and most folks buy the small ones, just more economy, I guess, in that. But some of the bigger ones, we can actually plant them now and enjoy them now. And many growers today are mixing several varieties together, perhaps 3 different varieties in one container. So all the pollination is looked after. And if you don't have a lot of space, that's a great way to be able to grow them and enjoy them. And again, we had a pretty good winter this year, but the past 2 prior winters, it was really hard on so many of our figs.
Yeah.
Figs are zone 7 plants, but let me tell you, in so many homes, it's the favorite, fruit to have in the garden. And there's lots available in garden stores everywhere. And I do have to say that the Vern's brown turkey, that's one is probably the best variety of a darker, wonderful tasting fig. Desert King is it only produces 1 crop, but in terms of getting that wonderful light green fig, it's probably one of the best. And again, a warm spot for the winter is really the key for them. But that's just the diversity. And again, all the small fruit trees are coming into people's gardens. And Michelle, I really want to mention one thing about fruit trees. And the fact is, often you need to have 2 different trees, and I just don't have it for pollination. I don't have the room. Many growers right now are grafting several varieties onto 1 tree.
Oh.
So again, in terms of space, I could have 3 varieties in one particular tree, and also they're growing them in a flat, kind of an espaliered form. And that form, of course, will allow you to put it up against a fence. It doesn't take much room, but oh my gosh, the fruit you'll get. And apples, pears, plums, cherries, can all be grown in this way. So in terms of saying, well, I don't have room,
right.
With the new varieties and styles of fruits, you do have room. So it's a great time to think about it and a wonderful time to get things going.
Absolutely. Then you can be ready by July.
You sure can.
Yeah, get the ever-bearing fruits. Brian, I'm so excited to have you here. We have lots of callers already. So if you want to give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Dawn is in White Rock. Hi, Dawn.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, thanks for
I've
calling.
got thanks for having me. I've got a Daphne that I bought about 10 years ago. It's been beautiful. It's loads of flowers. The last couple of years, there's been less and less leaves on it, so now there's maybe just a quarter of the newest part of the bush that has leaves. And I take it out, except all the remaining branches, although they're bare, they're still flexible and green underneath the bark. So what can I do?
Yeah, it sounds like one of the older broadleaf varieties, Don, and they are beautiful. And I'm just going to make a suggestion. If you are thinking of replacing it, the only one to get is a newer variety over the past few years called Eternal Fragrance. That is hardier. It produces that wonderful perfume from March, end of March, early April, all the way through to the end of the season. So if you're thinking of one, the Eternal Fragrance is the way to go for Daphne. In the meantime, the buds would normally be set. Does it have any buds on it, Don?
Not
the flowers.
Yeah, maybe like 8 or 10. It's really died back.
Okay.
Or it's not dead, but no buds.
Yeah. In the past 2 winters have been hard on Daphne as well, to be very frank. So what I would do if when the growth really starts, and honestly it's going to be 2-3 weeks before that happens, once you see the growth coming, I would do 3 things. I would prune the plant back into those, when you prune back into the wood, new growth will start developing. That'll certainly help get it to come along. The other thing I worry about the roots, and I would get some fine bark, make sure it's fir, ground up twice, and please work it into the soil. Daphne love the acidity into the soil, but it opens up the soil and really helps the roots become, more easily established. That's really a big thing. And the last thing is feeding it, and I don't know what we'd be doing, but once you cut it back and work some new material around the roots to try and encourage new root growing, I would use a time-release fertilizer, and I would use something like a 14-14-14, because what that will do will continuously feed over the entire summertime to try and get your Daphne back. So, Don, those are the things I would do that I think we try and get this back in shape.
Okay, so you think there's hope for it?
I do. You're talking to an eternal optimist here, so yes,
That's right.
absolutely.
Eternal Blossom. What was the name, Brian?
Oh, Eternal Fragrance.
Eternal Fragrance and Eternal Optimist would be Brian's version of that.
Okay.
Don, there is hope. So glad you called. Thank you for the call. Jill is up next now in Vancouver as well. Hi, Jill.
Hello. Greetings.
Greetings.
Yes, I've got a question about my front yard. I'm giving it back to the birds and the squirrels. They
nice.
want their land back. So what I've done is I've already put down a whole bunch of cardboard, and I've topped it up with mulch. And now I want to know what to do next, because I've got a bunch of bags of manure, and I could order some soil. I have a bunch of wildflower seeds and also quite a few like butterfly and bee bulbs that I want to plant out there too. And I'm sort of ready to go, but I need some help.
Okay, Joe, your year to do this is probably best, because the overall theme for this year in terms of gardening is nature's renaissance. So you're on top of it.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. Well, I have so many birds already. It's unbelievable. I've got a lot of feeders out there, so I thought, well, you guys can have it.
Okay. Now, what is your garden like right now? You put cardboard down. Did you not have a lawn or area under there? Was the cardboard simply to control weeds? What was?
That was a small lawn. It's not very big. I've got a garden. I've got gardens that sort of go along both sides of the walkway. Then I'll leave those, but it's the main lawn that's in front, and it's surrounded by cedars. But
sure.
It gets
that helps a lot. That's great. Good. Now, the thing is, I would take the cardboard away right now. And you're right, enriching the soil is job one. And so if you could work up the soil a wee bit, especially if it's quite hard and compact, if the soil is very heavy, again, getting some fir bark mulch and work it into the soil, that'll help open up the soil so all things will grow and do very, very well. Once you've done that, yes, then putting your organic matter in. I love manures. I love sea soil. I love those types of things. You don't want to overdo it, but certainly enrich the soil so without having to fertilize all the time, everything will start coming along very, very well. The one thing I'm cautioning a lot of folks on, Joe, is not to do it too early. Wait until we get consistent daytime temperatures of around 10 degrees Celsius and maybe even not freezing at night. So, being a little bit later is better than being too early. And then the strategy in terms of like wildflower mixes are okay. Make sure you get a West Coast mix, though. That's very, very important. A lot of the wildflower mixes are in various parts of the country or the world or wherever. You want to have one that has materials that actually grow and thrive right here. The other thing we do in addition to that is, the best wildflower gardens are planted wildflower gardens. In other words, you're taking somebody else's mix as opposed to really personalizing it for what you'd like to see growing. And I would always choose, I love California poppies, for example, because they repeat bloom all summer long. It's about having perennials in that mix and biennials in that mix that bloom for a long period of time than a short period of time. So, and again, putting long blooming perennials like coreopsis, putting a few, you can get them in 4-inch pots and put them in the mix so you have this consistent long color to enjoy rather than it looks really good and then it's gone. So the long period of having to be able to have that color, and again for pollinators as well, the longer you can have them, the better it's going to be.
Absolutely.
So those are some key things. And again, wait 2 or 3 weeks before I would get going personally. So a seed mix is okay. Adding your perennials that you would love and come back year after year would be far more important. And then, putting things like the butterfly bush in, the buddleias that are non-invasive. There's so many that bloom all summer long and give you fragrance, but they also create a nice look for the butterflies to be able to come to the garden. So I would be really creative. I would think about it really well, maybe get a little bit of advice in terms of what you want to do. But, Joe, that's how I'd go about it.
Oh, Jill, what a great endeavor. And I hope you get lots of visitors once it gets going. Rewilding, I guess, is what it is, too. Jill, thank you very much. That's Jill in Vancouver. Our numbers again to get your question into Master Gardener Brian Mincher is 1-800-825-5950 or 604-669-3733. You can also just hit pound 690 or email bctoday@cbc.ca. And Leela writes us an email about fertilizer, Brian. What organic fertilizer, no access to the real thing from a farm, is best for peppers and tomatoes and would also work for all other veggies?
In British Columbia, there was a gentleman in the interior who developed a product line called Gaia Green, and I think he's passed it on already. But Gaia Green has been, I talked to him many years ago. He was very passionate about this fertilizer because it has micronutrients as well naturally. And but the Gaia series, which comes in many, the most popular is a 444 Gaia Green. It's one we're getting lots of comments from folks who want to stay 100% organic, and it's really good. But it has results. And organic fertilizers don't have lots of nitrogen. They're very well balanced, low analysis in terms of what they're doing, but they stay in there and regenerate year after year. So that is certainly one I would highly recommend. I've seen the results from it, and folks really love it.
Get those peppers going, Leela. Thank you very much for the email, bctoday@cbc.ca. And let's go back to the phone lines now. John is calling from Vancouver with a question for Brian Mincher. Hi, John.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Brian, I'm calling about the boulevard trees that we have in Vancouver. I live in East Van. So many of them are caked with a moss. I'm looking at it now. It's kind of, it's bushy, but still sort of individual, very fine. Is there anything we can do to kind of help the trees? Because I'm assuming this moss is not a good sign.
Yeah, it does impede over time the tree. There's no question about that, John. And thank you for bringing it up because a lot of people are thinking the same thing. It's getting late to do it now, but essentially the organic lime sulfur is the control for moss. And you want to do it normally from November to the end of February is the normal window. But on a trunk where you don't have new growth coming along, you're fine to still to be able to use it. If you're worried about it getting late in the season, John, this is important. There's a dormant ratio, which is quite thick, and there's a growing season ratio, which is quite a bit milder. So if you have lots of new growth and whatnot, use the growing season ratio. But here's the thing. It has to be done 3 times about a minimum of week to 10 days apart. And it basically dissipates that moss, dries it up naturally. It's really quite an organic fungicide that does a great job in controlling moss.
Okay, so that's something that I would be spraying on the tree or something like that?
Yes, you mix it with water and just spray it on the tree. It's very, very gentle. The only thing is I have to remind folks, when you're using lime sulfur in particular, no nut trees, no maple trees, and no viburnums for some particular reason. Those are the three trees that are not happy about lime sulfur.
Oh, wow. John, how many trees are we talking about here?
Oh, I see this all over the place. I've got three of the trees just in my front boulevard, two big, one or smaller tree. But it's literally on the west side, on the east side, it seems to be everywhere.
Yeah, okay. Well, you've got a lot of work ahead of you then. I hope you have some helpers. John, thank you for the call, talking about how to deal with moss on those trees, that you see on on boulevards around Vancouver, getting covered with moss. So lots of good advice there from Brian on that. Althea is our next caller from North Vancouver now, and we were talking about figs earlier, Brian. Althea has a question about a fig tree.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, you two. Thank you. Thank you for this.
Yeah.
Listen, I have a fig tree that did not do well in the winters, the last 2 winters, but I left it alone. And so it's basically a dead-looking, straight-up piece that's about 1.5 inches in diameter. And now, to my happiness, there are about 6 or 8 sort of upward-aiming branches, but they start where the ground is. So I'm looking at more of a bush, and I'm wondering what I'm best to do now. Help.
Yeah, and Althea, that's a very good question. We grow figs, and they will all start with one stem, but they quickly sucker up, and you get all kinds of multiple stems coming up there. So you can grow it as a shrub, which will get 10, 12 feet high. With multiple stems coming up, it'll certainly get you more figs. Or if you want just keep a single stem, you just have to prune everything else out. But I would never do that because I'd like to have more, variety of figs. So I would train the tree a wee bit, stake some of the new, very soft, supple growth, stake them so they're nice and strong and have a nice look about the plant, and just simply let them grow that way. I would give them some feed as soon as the weather begins to get some new growth on them. That's very important. But if the stem is a reasonable size, oh my gosh, if it's, even 2 or 3 feet long, it'll be a fruit-bearing stem that you'll enjoy fruit from later in the summertime. So basically, it's your choice what you want to do. I'm glad you're getting new growth. Pick the best ones and stake them up so it looks like an organized and fitting into the landscape type of tree.
You're right. Oh, Althea.
Let me ask, will the trunk of the tree, will it continue to grow up even though it looks like there's nothing much left in it? Or will only the suckers grow and develop?
No, if the tree is alive and it's viable, it really got frost damage last year and the year before. So basically, sometimes it's better to cut it out. I would take it out completely, allow all the new growth to come along because that's how figs grow, and very vigorously and very fine. So if it's not perky, not doing well, not producing lots of side shoots on it, I would honestly take it out.
Okay, Althea, thank you very much. And I hope you get to enjoy a lot of figs this summer. The more the merrier, right? Ingrid is calling from Bowser now. Hi, Ingrid.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I've got a question about horsetail. It is invading my raised vegetable garden.
Oh, no.
And I don't know what to do. I don't know, do I take all the soil out and start from scratch, or what would be the answer for this?
To be honest with you, because once it infiltrates in there, this is a weed with intelligence. I mean, it will go wherever you can't get to it. I'm serious. I fought that by hand for many, many years. So what you really need to do is, I honestly start from scratch, take the soil out, and I would put heavy-duty plastic on the ground, and because that's the only way you're going to stop. Landscape fabric will not stop horsetail. It'll find a way through it. My goodness, it'll find a way through pavement. But heavy-duty plastic in the bottom, and then put your soils back in place, and you should be absolutely fine to be able to get control that way. Over time, if you find water sitting, you could put the odd little pinhole in the plastic so the water drains. But honestly, I did the same thing. It was all through we got some bad soil mixed in with it. And I finally got it cleaned up and never had a problem since. So you really have to bite the bullet, get everything out, start fresh. And oh my gosh, it'll pay dividends. So please, if you don't mind, you got to go that route.
Ingrid.
Okay, so one last little question is about that. So would I reuse the soil? Will it die off in the soil, then those spores? Or would I get fresh soil?
I would screen the soil a wee bit, but let me tell you, once you start chopping it up, it'll repropagate from the tiniest little bit. It's equisetum is what it is, and it just has an ability to grow from the tiniest little bit of speck. So I would be very careful if I'm going to use it again. I would certainly screen it, keep an eye out for it. If you screen it, you should be fine to be able to use it. But then if you do see any evidence of it, just get rid of it immediately so you've got control. But you really have to watch this very, very carefully, Ingrid.
Ingrid, thank you very much. And Ingrid's calling from Hauser in the Kootenays. I had her all the way on Vancouver Island in Bowser, but she's calling from Hauser. Martha, I have about 30 seconds if you want to ask your question to Brian.
Okay, I'll be really quick. My 90-year-old mom has a 45-year-old hibiscus that she's moved in and out, and I'm looking, and it looks like it had wilt disease. All the leaves suddenly dried up but stayed green, and I think I did something wrong because I transplanted it.
But you're trying to save it.
I was trying to save it, and I put it back in the sunlight, and I'm just wondering if there's something else I can do to try and save this for her.
Yeah, thanks, Martha.
Yeah, three things. We're real quick here. Number one is make sure it's not in too large a pot. Hibiscus love to be root bound in smaller pots. So that's my one concern. Scrape the stems to see if there's any green. If there is green, when you scrape just the cambium layer inside the bark, the plant probably will be fine. And what I love to do is, as it starts to grow, prune it back to get it nice and full. Instead of having one or two or three stems, I'd like to have a really nice full plant. But hibiscus are incredibly resilient, and they once they're established, they want to be on the dry side rather than being too wet. Just in terms of culture, that's the one thing they like. And they love 20-20-20 fertilizer. That seems to be one of the best ones to revive them.
Martha, good luck to you. Brian, thank you very much. I hope you have a nice weekend.
And good luck on your trip. I've been to the Philippines. I love that country. It's amazing.
Thank you. We'll talk to you when I get back. That's Brian Minter. He'll be back in 2 weeks.